and welcome to our session today on becoming verification ready, the benefits of pre-assurance. In today's fast-paced and highly regulated business environment, being prepared for verification and assurance is crucial, especially in light of regulations such as California's Senate Bill 253. Pre-assurance, also referred to as a readiness assessment or pre-verification, is a proactive approach that not only helps organizations meet compliance requirements, but also enhances efficiency, reduces cost, and improves overall performance. During our chat today, we'll explore some of these key benefits of pre-assurance. To get us kicked off, my name is Brianna Hardy. I am a senior sustainability consultant here at Bureau Veritas, where I help advise corporates on all things sustainability strategy and reporting. And alongside me, I have my counterpart, John. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Happy to. Thanks, Brianna. My name is John Stangline. I'm the Sustainability Business Unit Manager with Bureau Veritas Certification in North America. I've been conducting assurance and verification of environmental and sustainability data for at least the past 12, 13 years. In some years, leading teams verifying over 1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So a good breadth of experience, a lot of volume, a lot of industries. So happy to talk with you today, Brianna.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So just before we dive into some of the questions that we have prepared, can you level set myself and the audience on the difference between when we say pre-assurance, assurance, verification, pre-verification? There's a lot of different terms that we're utilizing kind of interchangeably. Can you level set on what those mean?
Absolutely. So the difference between verification and assurance really is very minor. Typically, I'll exchange those terms almost universally as being equal or equivalent. Normally, we'll talk to assurance as assuring a statement or a declaration, and we will talk about verification of verifying the data. So you verify the content, and then you assure the declaration or the communication. So it's functionally the same thing, but minor differences. So the difference between, again, verification and assurance is very little. The pre-assurance or pre-verification, again, taking those terms with equivalent meanings, basically it's a readiness review. It's looking at what you have in place to be able to decide, have we done the right things to this point? Are we prepared? Are we ready for a full formal verification that would end with an assurance statement that can be used externally or internally?
Thanks. So as it relates to pre-verification or being verification ready for greenhouse gas reporting, what does that mean? What are the benefits of pre-verification? Can you walk us through that?
Sure, absolutely. So being ready for verification or verification ready means that your data, your documentation, and your processes are well organized. They're easily communicated to external parties or unfamiliar people. They're traceable, and you're really ready for that independent third-party assurance review. So that is being ready. Not only does it involve reviewing for accurate data, but it's also the calculations, the methodology, your governance, your documentation, and your internal quality control. And it's really a full view of everything from the electronic aspects, the source data and evidence, but also the training and the familiarity of the participants and the data owners with why they're doing this and what they're doing, what their reference standards are. The process is really, it's a proactive external review or third-party review of your data, your reporting process, and it's doing that before that formal full third-party assurance, such as with California climate reporting. You really want to be ready when it's required for disclosure. You don't want to get to the point of disclosure and find out we did something wrong, and it's going to take time to fix that. So it really helps you to identify those gaps, the errors, and any inconsistencies early so you can address those before the required verification begins.
Absolutely. And would you say pre-assurance or pre-verification makes the formal verification process faster, more cost effective? What are some of the benefits there?
Oh yeah, certainly it does. So very specifically, by identifying and resolving those issues before you get into the full process in advance, you really do avoid delays. You reduce level of rework and also verifier time and expense. One of the things that a lot of companies think about when they're going out for external assurance or pre-assurance is, what is it going to cost me to retain a third party to do this? What we also like to think of is, what is the effort and time that the company is going to have to put into it? So it really is both ways. And by doing the pre-assurance, you reduce the time that it takes for that full verification, both with the verifier and with the company and their team. So as assurance providers, we do find that typically companies who have either had their emissions assured previously, or they work with us for pre-assurance, it typically requires fewer hours for that full verification. And it makes the process both smoother, a lot easier, and less stressful, and certainly more cost and time efficient.
Awesome. Sounds like a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, it is.
Moving on, what would you say are some of the areas that are typically reviewed as part of the pre-assurance process?
Sure. So very specifically, we start out with the methodology and the boundaries of your system. What's your organizational structure? What boundaries, what activities, locations, what's your footprint? We'll get into the reference standards that you use. Is it ISO 14064, or are you going with the greenhouse gas protocol? What are you including as far as scope 1 and 2, your emission sources? Are you including any scope 3 categories? And if so, have you done a materiality assessment to find out which ones are those that you really should review and report? And also which ones you have data available for. What's the burden of getting information and evidence? So from there, once we determine and really look at why you're doing things and what you're doing, we get into the details of data sources, the evidence, calculations, the emissions factors that are applied. We look for primary data as well as those assumptions or estimates that are made specifically for data gaps. We look for completeness of information. Do you have the full information for all facilities? Have you excluded anything? We look at your internal controls and your internal review process, and then again also the consistency with the reporting standards again. One of the details that we also get into are you using an external software or service provider to prepare your emissions? Or are you doing it internal with a spreadsheet? Historically, there's been many Excel spreadsheets. Some are small and not very complex. Smaller organizations, that works. Large organizations, it really becomes burdensome. So we get into the spreadsheets. It could be something simple as missing a cell in a summation of data. So it is very thorough in that pre-assurance to make sure that you're ready.
Yeah, and it sounds like the pre-assurance process that we undertake is very similar to those verification activities that we would do as part of our formal verification process.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good trial run. So not only is it a good exercise to prepare the details of the information, the data that you have, etc., but also it gives you some comfort on what to expect when the formal process begins. It really is, the pre-assurance is a more comfortable light touch on the information. We won't sample as much data, but we will look at the different data management methods and tools to make sure that they're appropriate and they're capable of providing the data and the level of detail and accuracy that's needed.
Awesome. To that end, John, what would we advise companies prepare? What type of documentation will they need to have prepared in advance of engaging in a pre-verification project with us?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly you need your greenhouse gas inventory, your emissions inventory. So that's certainly something that we want to look at. And not only do we want to see the final numbers, what are your scope 1 and scope 2 and your different scope 3 category emissions, but we really want to be able to follow that chain of emission sources, energy activity, fuel usage, etc. Be able to follow that up and down. A lot of the times what we look for, and if it's not something that a client has prepared, one of our recommendations or opportunities for improvement is to prepare an inventory management plan. And that really gets into all the details, the relevant information of what are your activities and boundaries, who are the data owners, how are you sourcing data, how are you documenting and checking, what calculation methodologies, all those details of everything, literally from we use this invoice for this activity data and we accumulate it, aggregate it, and report it here using this methodology. This is the responsible person, and these are the emission factors that we use, or conversion factors to get into calculation units. So it really is a process roadmap to keep things moving. And then other than that, in that inventory management plan, and again, let me reiterate and stress that that is a time-saving document. It does take effort to prepare, but if the responsible person for the inventory leaves the company, it's easy to transfer that knowledge to the next person. And it's also very easy to communicate to verifiers or assurance providers, this is how we do things. So it saves time and energy in that verification process. So also within the pre-assurance, we do look at source evidence as far as, like I mentioned, the invoices or the weight tickets for whatever, if you're sending waste offsite, you want that verified. Or if you're purchasing propane or have refrigerants that are being replaced into the system, having documentation of those deliveries or the service tickets are very, very helpful and should be available.
Awesome. Just to summarize, can you describe the pre-assurance process that we undertake here at Bureau Veritas?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically what we'll do is we'll have a conversation with the client to ensure that we have a good understanding of their need and their request. Are they seeking pre-assurance followed by the formal verification? Do they just need pre-assurance? And what do you do? We want to understand what your activities are, what your locations are, a little bit of information on, again, do you have an inventory management plan? Are you doing this work internally or externally? So once we have that understanding, we'll start by having a virtual kickoff meeting, for example. And a lot of times we do the work virtually, particularly with pre-assurance, because there's not really that necessity for on-site work. But we'll have a kickoff meeting to really identify the team, make sure that we have introductions done so we know who we're working with, who the responsible parties are. We'll set timelines. We'll identify easily things like where are we going to store or how are we going to exchange information and data so that it's secure, what our expected deliverables are. Once we do that meeting, we'll ensure that we have the information we need, and we'll prepare a verification plan. So that'll come back and it's not really a full formal plan, but it's an outline, I would say, of the process we're going to take, which data sampling we're going to do, what sites or what interviews we need to talk to, the whole timetable, and then different roles, responsibilities, and how we're going to address issues. We will use an issues log to record any issues that we find, either non-conformances with methodologies or data inaccuracies or incompleteness. We'll exchange that, and that's how we communicate opportunities for improvement and to be able to push that forward to improve. From there, we really get into diving into that supporting evidence, making sure we create the issues log as we go forward. And at the end of it, once we get to a point where we've answered any questions that we have that confidence to the desired level of assurance, whether, again, that's limited or reasonable, and we can get into with the difference between those at another time. But towards the end of that, with the verification of the pre-assurance process, we'll share that issues log in a small summary. Again, in pre-assurance, we're not consulting. We're not telling you how to close gaps or resolve issues. We're identifying those issues and providing feedback so that the clients can make improvements. We want to maintain that impartiality and independence. Again, to be able to continue the pre-assurance into full assurance or full verification to supply and support the clients on that end.
Awesome. Very comprehensive overview. Thank you, John. That
Absolutely.
concludes the questions that we have as it relates to pre-verification. If any of you who are watching have questions or would like to reach out to John or myself directly, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can also visit bvna.com /contact-us if you'd like to submit an inquiry request, and we will reach out to you as soon as possible. So thank you all for joining and watching, and we look forward to our next recording.